I was 23 when I met Nathan Hale, charming 10 years older and already a name in real estate circles. At least that's what he claimed. I was fresh out of architecture school carrying a backpack of rolled up blueprints and naive hopes. He had a fast car, tailored suits, and the kind of smile that makes you forget to ask the right questions. We met at a networking mixer for young professionals. I almost didn't go. I had deadlines, I was shy, and I didn't think I'd belong. But my roommate pushed me out the door saying, "You never know who you'll meet. Maybe someone who believes in your designs." Nathan made his move within 15 minutes of my arrival. He spotted me in the corner sipping water and clutching my portfolio like a lifeline. "You don't look like the others," he said, sliding next to me. "You actually care about what you create. I can see it in your hands, that line, so tailored, so precise. I should have known." But instead, I laughed a little awkward and said, "I guess I care too much. I'm an architect who still thinks design can change lives. And that," he whispered, "is exactly why you're going to make it." The truth is, I was starved for recognition, years of being overlooked in class. Professors passing over my work in favor of louder voices. It had worn me down. And here was this man, this elegant, confident man telling me I was seen. Within weeks, he was showing up with coffee at my studio, inviting me to site visits, offering to introduce me to his network. I didn't realize at the time that I was giving away bits of myself, my concepts, my approach, my drafts. He'd say things like, "You should show this at my pitch tomorrow. They'd love your work." But at the meetings, he'd speak over me. I was just Camille, my genius, wife in progress. The designs were mine, but the credit was all his. Still, I told myself it was love. I mean, he proposed on the rooftop of my favorite library, the one with the Art Deco skylight I'd always gushed about. He said, "Let's build something great together, starting with a life." I was 24 when I became Mrs. Camille Hale. The ceremony was glamorous. He insisted on flying both our families to Napa Valley. "You deserve something timeless," he said. What I didn't know then was that the vows were the only honest part. The rest a blueprint for possession. The first red flag I ignored came on our honeymoon. We were in Tuscany walking through an ancient villa. I pointed to a crumbling archway and said, "If someone repurposed that form with modern lines, it could be stunning, like bringing the soul of the old into something livable." Nathan smiled, pulled out his phone, and took notes. 2 months later, a design with that exact concept was featured in Architectural Elite magazine under Nathan's name. He called it Renaissance Reborn. When I asked about it, he kissed my forehead and said, "You're my muse. What's mine is yours." And just like that, I swallowed the insult and let him wear my mind like a coat he borrowed. By 25, I had stopped applying for design jobs. "No need," Nathan said. "You have me. You'll never have to prove anything to anyone." He'd give me expensive gifts, bags, jewelry trips, but they all came with the same price: silence. Stay home, smile, be grateful, be still. At night, I would sketch in secret pieces of buildings that would never be. Concepts that lived only in the pages of my hidden journal. Then came the protection phase, as I now call it. Nathan began managing all our finances. "You hate math," he teased. "Let me take care of it." He convinced me to sign a joint holdings agreement. "Just in case something happens to me, you'll have access." But slowly I lost access. My personal account was merged into his business trust. Our house, bought with my inheritance from my grandmother, was refinanced under Hale Holdings LLC. When I confronted him, he said, "I'm shielding us from liabilities. Trust me. You don't want to get dragged into the legal trenches of development contracts." He made me feel like a child, like the world was too sharp for my soft hands. And the worst part, I believed him. It wasn't until I found a printed email accidentally left on our printer that the veil truly began to lift. It was a note from his assistant forwarded to a city planner discussing the renderings for a new sustainable housing project. Attached were my sketches, the ones I had drawn in secret, the ones I never showed anyone but Nathan. The subject line read, "Initial designs from Nathan Hale, Draft 1. My hands shook. I read it twice, then 3 times. He'd stolen my vision again, but this time, from my journal. That night I said nothing. I smiled over dinner. I poured his wine. I listened to him complain about idiots on his board, and I waited because something in me had cracked, not broken, cracked like the surface of old stone, ready to split with the right pressure. This was no longer about theft, it was about erasure. He wasn't just using me, he was making sure no one would ever know I existed, and that my dear friend was his first miscalculation. Because I may have been silent, but I was still an architect, and I had finally decided to build something. Not a home, not a design, but a reckoning. The morning after I found the stolen sketches in Nathan's email printout, I woke up next to him and felt like I was lying beside a stranger wearing my husband's face. He stirred, kissed my shoulder, and whispered, "Sleep well, genius." I almost laughed. Every instinct told me to confront him, to scream, to demand why he thought he could erase me and call it love, but I didn't, because something in his voice chilled me deeper than the betrayal. It was calm, confident, so sure I'd never leave. That's when I realized Nathan didn't fear losing me because in his mind he already owned me. That week I started to test my autonomy. I asked about restarting my portfolio. He smiled and said, "You're better than that grind. Besides, you're too valuable to be wasting time chasing clients." I asked for access to our joint bank account. He blinked and replied, "Didn't I tell you we moved everything into the trust last quarter? It's safer that way." I pushed further, "But I need to see the statements." Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't hit me. No, he did worse. He sighed. That sigh, disappointed, paternalistic, condescending. "Camille," he said, "are you okay? You've been paranoid lately." And just like that, the ground beneath me shifted, because now my questions were no longer questions. They were symptoms. He started suggesting I rest more, cut back on caffeine, see someone just to keep things healthy. Then came the pills, a prescription just for sleep slipped to me by his private doctor friend. I stopped taking them after the second night. They dulled everything, my senses, my thoughts, even my memory, but I kept pretending I did. I needed time and clarity. A phone call and a lifeline. That clarity came one afternoon when I snuck into the garage to dig through old boxes. I found my backup hard drive one I thought Nathan had thrown away years ago. It still had all my original drafts dated, watermarked, unedited, mine. I knew then that I wasn't crazy, that I had been gaslit into questioning my own legacy, and I knew exactly who to call: Isla Montgomery. We hadn't spoken in nearly 3 years, not since Nathan subtly discouraged our friendship, said she was too cynical. She picked up on the second ring. Camille, just hearing my name and her voice, made my chest tighten. "I need help," I whispered, "and I think I'm in danger." We met at a downtown cafe 3 days later. I wore sunglasses, brought no phone. Isla had aged into her confidence. Sleek bob pressed suit, fire in her eyes. She listened, took notes, asked for nothing in return. Then she said, "Cam, I don't know how deep this goes, but if what you're telling me is true, this isn't just manipulation. It's intellectual theft, asset laundering, and possibly coercive control." I nodded. "He thinks I'm weak." "No," she said. "He needs you to be weak. There's a difference." The trap tightens. The next day, Nathan showed up at home early. "You went out?" he asked casually. My heart dropped, just for coffee. Funny. "My assistant saw you near 5th and Briar. That's not where the cafe is." I stayed quiet. Then he said it. "I'm worried about you, Camille, truly. You're not sleeping, you're anxious, you're accusing me of crazy things." He reached into his jacket and handed me an envelope. It was a recommendation from him to check into a private wellness facility. "Just a few weeks," he said, "to reset, to get back to being you." And when I said no, he didn't argue. Instead, he made one phone call. Less than 48 hours later, I woke up in a psychiatric center, signed in voluntarily, according to the forms, except I hadn't signed anything. Nathan had forged my signature using a power of attorney document I supposedly granted him 2 years ago when I was recovering from surgery, just in case, he had said. Now it was being used to strip me of my freedom. Inside the glass walls. The center was luxurious on the surface. Private rooms, garden walks, soft music, but make no mistake, it was a cage. I was monitored, medicated, labeled as delusional with narcissistic undertones. The staff treated me kindly but condescendingly, as if I were a child spinning wild tales, and Nathan. He visited weekly, brought flowers, smiled for the nurses. "She's just been under pressure," he said once, stroking my hair. "I love her. I just want her safe." I stared at him silent. But inside, I was building. Every hour, every word, every signature, I logged it. I wrote notes on napkins, hid them in my pillow, memorized the nurses' schedules. The fog lifted when I stopped taking the meds Isla had advised me. Only pretend compliance. Never give them cause to extend your stay. By the end of the second month, I had assembled a map of the lies, the forgeries, the financial transfers. I wasn't broken. I was documenting. And then, my release came sooner than Nathan expected. A new psychiatrist, an intern, actually reviewed my original intake. He noticed inconsistencies, flagged my case. 3 days later, I walked out the front doors, quiet, smiling, grateful. Nathan picked me up in his Jaguar, humming a Sinatra tune. See, he said, gripping my hand. You're better now, we're better. And I smiled, because now I understood him. And because while he thought he had erased me, I had already started writing the blueprint for his ruin. The key to surviving in hell is to smile like you're home. That's the first rule I learned once I was back in the house Nathan built with my stolen dreams. He thought the psychiatric facility had reset me, scrubbed away the suspicion, the resistance, the voice. And I let him think so. Camille, he said, the night I returned, I missed you. It was strange not having your energy around the house. My energy, I repeated softly. I missed yours too. He smiled. I swallowed the bile. From the outside, we were back to normal. Dinner parties, charity galas, hand-in-hand appearances at real estate conferences where he was the visionary. Inside, I was meticulous, careful, dangerously aware I knew I couldn't rush revenge. Not yet, because I wasn't just aiming to expose him. I wanted to dismantle everything. Blueprints and backdoors. Each morning, I'd take a quiet walk to our library. It was a sunlit room Nathan rarely used, too quiet for his ego. There, behind volumes of architecture theory, I kept a hidden USB drive tucked in the pages of an old design compendium. It contained over 60 original designs, all mine, all time-stamped and signed. Every blueprint he had ever claimed as his own. I had the draft versions. Some even had our arguments scribbled in the margins. His words, my corrections, proof. But documents weren't enough. I needed witnesses, paper trails, signatures, and for that, I needed Greta Lang Isla's attorney friend. Cha! The meeting that changed everything. We met at a parking garage. It was comical in a tragic kind of way. Two women crouched behind a sedan, flipping through contracts like spies. Greta had done her homework, she said. Here's the fun part. Camille Nathan transferred multiple assets to Hale Holdings using a signature that doesn't match your legal ID. Look at this curve of the C is wrong, slants inconsistent. This is forgery. My stomach tightened. And this, she continued, pulling another folder, is the merger contract for his upcoming $100 million development with Easton Capital. It's built entirely on your designs. He filed the land use proposal using renderings from the Ravine series. You remember those? I nodded. The Ravine series were my proudest work. Urban housing that respected natural landscapes. He's weeks away from closing, Greta said. If we act now, we can stop the deal cold. But I shook my head. Not yet, I said. I want him to believe he's invincible. First, Shields. The mask of the perfect wife. I began to play the role of a woman redeemed. I brought Nathan breakfast in bed. I sent him ideas like a student seeking praise. I asked naive questions in front of his partners. He basked in it. He let his guard down. He even started telling people I was coming into my own again. And while he bragged about being my savior, I was laying traps. Using Greta's guidance, I quietly revoked the power of attorney he had abused. I filed for a forensic review of our financial accounts through a third-party auditor under my maiden name. I also reinstated my copyrights on 3 design series, covertly filing claims with the Architecture Board and U.S. Patent Office. Everything was timed. Everything was quiet. Tam. A digital trail of fire. The turning point came when I discovered Nathan's assistant, Shay, was more loyal to money than morality. I left a voice note in my drafts folder one where Nathan bragged about using my old designs for a new luxury high-rise. Shay heard it. She texted me that night, "Do you want emails too? I keep copies just in case." 2 days later, I had an archive, everything. Nathan's emails to clients referring to me as a great aesthetic asset but unstable. Memos to his lawyer instructing him to bury her rights in contract addendums, and worse, bribes to planning officials using my designs as part of his leverage. I printed every page, categorized them, built a digital folder titled Empire Built on Lies, and I shared it with only 2 people, Isla and Greta. Japshish. The calm before the collapse. The night before I moved to Phase 2, Nathan walked in holding a bottle of wine. "To us," he said, pouring a glass. To a second beginning, I took a sip, smiled, looked him in the eye. "I'm so glad you believe in rebuilding," I said softly. "Always," he nodded. "You're a new woman." "No," I whispered to myself. "I'm the same woman, just no longer silent." The morning of the Easton Capital merger, Nathan woke up humming. He adjusted his tie in the mirror, flicked lint from his custom blazer, and winked at me like a man on top of the world. "This is it, babe," he said, sipping his espresso. "We're going global." I smiled as I straightened his cufflinks. "You've earned it," I said. "They'll never see you coming." he chuckled. No one ever does. He was right. No one saw what was coming, especially him. Jets! 9:00 a.m. The boardroom. The Easton Capital office was slick, sterile, and pulsing with tension, cameras, lawyers, champagne chilling in the corner. Nathan stood at the head of the table, his team to one side, Easton's executives to the other. He began with confidence. This partnership marks the next phase of innovation and expansion. Hale Holdings isn't just a brand, it's a movement. He pulled out a remote and clicked to the first slide renderings of the Ravine series, My Work, My Soul. He pointed proudly. These designs are the heart of our Green Living initiative, exclusive to Hale Holdings, drafted and delivered by my team. Right on cue, the doors opened. "Excuse me," came a voice from the back of the room. Heads turned. I stepped in, flanked by Isla and Greta, each holding thick folders. Nathan's face froze. The color drained from his cheeks like rain off marble. I set a folder on the table. "These designs belong to me, and I have the original files, timestamps, and copyright registration to prove it." Gasps echoed through the room. One of Easton's lawyers stood. "I beg your pardon, who are you?" Greta stepped forward. "Camille Hale, architect, intellectual property owner of the Ravine series, and 17 other design packages presented by Nathan Hale as proprietary assets." She dropped her own folder. All evidence included email correspondence, metadata payment transfers, forged documents, and wire instructions. "We filed for an immediate injunction." "She's unstable," Nathan shouted. "She was institutionalized. She's lying. She's jealous." I looked him dead in the eye. "I was institutionalized because you forged my signature and had me committed," he stammered. "That's absurd." Greta pulled out the signed document. Power of attorney dated 2022. Compare it to her DMV signature. Notice the slant, the loop, completely mismatched. The Easton executives conferred in hushed voices. Then their CEO stood. "Mr. Hale, we'll need to suspend negotiations pending full legal review." Nathan lunged forward. "You can't this deal, this empire, it's mine." I leaned in. "No, it was ours until you built it on lies, stole my genius and buried me alive to protect your ego." The media storm. By noon, the headlines hit: "Real Estate King exposed designs, stolen from institutionalized wife. Camille Hale, breaks, silence, brains behind the empire. Architect or victim? Inside the rise and fall of Nathan Hale." My inbox exploded. Old professor's clients I thought forgot me. Architecture magazines begging for interviews, but I declined. I wasn't here to be famous, I was here to be free. Chapter the fallout. Within a week, Easton Capital officially withdrew from the merger. Our Hale Holdings stock plummeted 42%. Investors filed breach of contract lawsuits. City planning boards opened investigations into misrepresented blueprints. Nathan was served a restraining order and a subpoena for financial fraud and coercion. I filed for divorce that same week with full asset disclosure attached. Nathan tried to countersue. He claimed mental distress, betrayal, loss of spousal support. Greta laughed in court. The man who silenced his wife now wants her voice to defend him. The judge sided with me. Every asset traced to my designs was frozen. I was granted full copyright ownership damages and 49% stake in Hale Holdings. And then came the final move. I bought him out. The board, desperate to salvage the company's name, offered to sell me Nathan's shares. At a discount, he was toxic now. No one wanted his face associated with the firm. I signed the papers in the same office he used to occupy. The receptionist, once cold to me, handed me the keys to the executive suite. "Mrs. Hale," she said quietly, "welcome back." I looked at the silver nameplate on the door. "Camille R. Hale, Principal Architect." I smiled. "No," I said. "Let's have that changed." She looked confused. "To what name, ma'am?" I stared through the glass at the skyline I once dreamed of designing. Then I said, "Camille Reeve," the name he tried to erase. The first morning in my new office felt unreal, not because of the skyline view or the modern desk or the silence Nathan used to fill with ego. It was the air. It felt mine. I brewed my own coffee. No assistants, no champagne flutes. Just me, the blueprints I once hid like shame, and the key to a building he thought I'd never enter without him. But I wasn't there to relive his past. I was there to rewrite my future. The rebranding. The first thing I did was rename the company. No more Hale Holdings. We became Rebuild, architecture with a soul. The name was intentional RE for Reeve, my reclaimed surname billed for everything I was told I couldn't do. The logo was simple, a rising structure shaped like an open hand, because we weren't here to dominate, we were here to uplift Bimao. New faces, new futures. I didn't fire everyone. Many of the employees had no idea what Nathan was doing, they were just trying to survive in a cutthroat industry. But I implemented new policies. Credit where credit is due. Every architect signed their own work. Transparency, all meetings recorded. All designs tracked. Healing over hustle therapy stipends. Flexible hours, no more 80-hour work weeks for praise that never came. And then I launched a fellowship, the Camille Reeve Foundation for Emerging Female Designers. We funded scholarships, hosted panels, offered internships to young women who had talent but no connections. I remembered what it felt like to be brilliant and invisible. Not anymore. The fall of Nathan Hale. Nathan tried to claw his way back. He started a podcast, wrote a book, The Mind of a Mogul. He painted himself as the victim of a vindictive ex-wife with a vendetta. But the world had seen enough of his mask. And I wasn't playing that game. I never responded. I never mentioned his name, because to acknowledge him was to validate him. Last I heard, he was living in a rented condo in Scottsdale. His new ventures had dried up. The industry didn't trust him anymore. One of his last texts to me read, "You always wanted power. Now you have it. Happy." I didn't reply because I didn't want power. I wanted peace. And now I had both. A moment of grace. 1 year after taking over the company, I stood on a stage in front of 400 people at an architectural symposium in Chicago. I wasn't just a keynote speaker, I was the speaker. My topic, what we build when we're broken. I told them everything. Not just about Nathan, but about silence, about being erased, about how so many women get buried under the label of supportive wife or creative muse, while their work builds empires for others. I ended with these words. I was never a ghost, I was the architect. And now, I don't just design buildings, I design futures. The crowd stood, some cried, others clapped like thunder, and me, I breathed, not with pride, with freedom. Home. I moved into a small loft, nothing fancy, exposed brick sunlight. Quiet. Every piece of furniture had a story I chose. No ghosts. I framed one of my oldest sketches, the original concept for the Ravine series, and hung it by my window, signed it, dated it. My signature in ink, in my own hand. The last note. On the day my divorce became final, I received a letter. It was from Nathan. Handwritten, unsent. Camille. You were always the better builder, I just had better walls, but you had windows and I never knew how to let the light in. I hope you do something with that light. N. I read it once, then I fed it to the shredder, because I didn't need apologies, I had everything.